It is Retro's Radio on this bitch. I'm back in this bitch. I'm back in this bitch. So if y'all watched the last video, y'all know I got this, this reference from the last video, and I was like, that would be a good reaction. So let's go ahead and react to NYC Clarence, Heatley, and the Preacher Crew. Gangsters, most evil America. We gonna see how evil this shit is.
His name equaled fear. Preacher equaled death.
Clarence Heatley was homegrown. He wrought all this destruction on his own community. It's believed he grew up incarcerated, in and out of juvenile hall, and trouble with the law.
There probably was close to 45 homicides that related to Preacher and members of his organization.
Clarence Heatley was allegedly a crack dealer and a cult leader with a thirst for blood. Authorities say his crew kidnapped and killed fellow
They always got this goofy ass deep voice, like from First 48. They always got this same, bro. Like on First 48, you watch that shit, they'll be like, they found him at 7 p.m. and he was, and it's this big pause too. You gotta wait for the pause. He was dead. Like, gang, bro, just talk normal.
Dealers, as well as women and children.
The police know they just cannot make a case. There's nobody in Harlem, nobody in the South Bronx who's willing to talk, because if you go and say it's a snitch, tell us something about the Preacher Crew, you're gonna be dead. As a result, they form a task force.
The federal task force was called C-11.
C-11 was created for the purpose of going after and prosecuting violent drug gangs.
In the early 90s, that task force has one goal: go after the Preacher Crew.
For years, all they had were rumors, street talk, and myths, but no bodies.
There's a building called 2075 Grand Concourse, and there's a basement there. Preacher lived there. The rumor was that he owned the building, and that's where they conducted most of...
I ain't gonna lie, and this is no disrespect to New York. I still haven't been yet. I want to go one day, so you know what I'm saying? Don't throw a chopped cheese at me when I fly out there. But it's a lot of project buildings and apartment complexes in New York that look like they straight from a horror movie. Like, I don't know. Let's rewind. Like, what the fuck is this entrance? This don't even look like a crib, bro. This look like you finna walk into a fucking, I don't even know, like a mental asylum gang. Like, what the fuck?
Preacher lived there. The rumor was that he owned the building, and that's where they conducted most of their tortures, their murders, their interrogations.
What they would do is he would vote thumbs up or thumbs down like the Roman gladiator days, and he was the ruler. He would just go like this with the thumb, and that meant kill him.
In the early 90s, one of Preacher's crew got caught by C-11 agents and agreed to talk. Preacher tried to silence the snitch.
One day we were in a meeting at the courthouse, and our informant was at the state courthouse, and he called and said, "They're after me."
He had seen Cuff and Preacher and a bunch of guys in a van.
We ran out of the courthouse, and we saw our informant jump in his car.
I see the guys in the van perk up and look at him. The informant gets into his car, drives the wrong way on the avenue in front of the courthouse.
Then we see a van take off after him. You have to picture the fact that we're in Lower Manhattan, traffic everywhere.
We ended up in a foot pursuit with a van through traffic. And of course, we all had our badges and our guns out. By the time that van was stopped, we probably had about 30 officers around it.
Damn.
Preacher's in the van with 4 of his henchmen. Well, everybody gets arrested. A search of the van revealed 3 or 4 lead pipes, 4 gorilla masks, and duct tape and rope. We knew that our informant was not gonna make it through the day.
The agents believed they saved a life that day, but they could not prove a serious crime.
So Preacher beats this case, and he gets out and he's back out on the street.
Because technically none of that shit he had was illegal. You could have metal pipes, you could have duct tape, you could have masks, all legally, and rope too.
But he knew then that he was wanted by the federal government.
I think Preacher actually enjoyed, believe it or not, the attention of the federal government. Because to him, it elevates his stature, because he's that important that the FBI is looking at me.
The C-11 Task Force, a group comprised of local detectives and federal agents, began tracking a litany of crimes believed to be tied in some way to the Preacher crew.
By the time I finished with the flowchart, it was huge. And it spanned from 155th Street down to just about 125th Street. It covered everything from heroin to PCP, untold homicides, untold violence.
There probably was close to 45 homicides that related to Preacher and his members of his organization.
Authorities were clear about who they were after.
Hooded as hell,
Members of his
bro.
organization.
Look at that left eye. What the
Authorities
fuck?
were clear about who they were after. Preacher and his top 2 lieutenants. A former housing cop named John Cuff, and an ex-military man, Anthony Boatwright. Anyone caught was offered written agreements of leniency in return for testimony.
The rules that we had with these individuals were, tell us what you did, be perfectly honest, and if we ever catch you lying, the agreement gets ripped up.
The agents began to understand the hard choice facing anyone they arrested: life in prison or death on the street.
Yeah.
There was a fellow who was arrested on a federal gun charge. The C-11 guys knew who he was, and they suggested that we sit down and talk to him and try to flip him. He was a heroin addict who had been on the street. I mean, he was literally a mess. But he had significant information about Clarence Heatley, and that was clearly the turning point. He was able to identify for us the various members of the gang and the Grand Concourse in Harlem.
He identified the basement of the building as a killing room.
That led us to charging Clarence Heatley, John Cuff, and 2 others in the gang on a double homicide.
A 47-count indictment came down July 15, 1996, charging Heatley and his crew with 11 murders, conspiracy, and narcotics trafficking. The federal government charged Preacher with running a continuing criminal enterprise under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
RICO statutes are wonderful when it comes to these type of investigations, because you will have bit players that are there but never actually pull the trigger. When you pull them in and you're telling them they're being charged with everything this organization did, they're going to cooperate.
We learned about an awful lot of murders very quickly. We would get a description of the murder, and then the detectives would go out and find the homicide file, and then we'd see the photos, and, you know, it's a pretty grisly business.
The U.S. Attorney's Office announced that they would be seeking the death penalty against Heatley and Cuff for their crimes.
Preacher, being the head of this organization, is responsible for everything that his organization does, whether he's there or not. He's responsible for it because it's in furtherance of the criminal enterprise.
But the man known as Preacher was not about to go quietly to the gallows.
It was so surprising when he was arrested how easy it was for him to cooperate and how fast he cooperated.
Small room at the U.S. District Courthouse in New York. He spoke openly about
Dude, I'm sure anybody would get to
crimes.
singing if they had 40 murders
He was a stone-cold killer
that they was going to have to take
controlled
charge
Harlem
for.
for decades, almost decades. To just flip at the drop of a hat to save his own butt, I mean, I found that amazing.
And his own life was indeed on the line.
The U.S. Attorney makes a recommendation to the Attorney General of the United States on whether or not the death penalty should be sought. The crimes that they were involved with were vast. They covered a tremendous amount of time. A lot of lives were lost.
The conversation with him was amazing to me. He's talking about this one and that one, and he said something to me that I was in danger, that Cuff told him he's gonna have me killed. They know where I live, they know where my mother lives. They knew all this stuff about me. So my family had bodyguards, round-the-clock security. I went back into the undercover mode again, but I believe Preacher did that for a reason. He couldn't care less if I was killed or not. That was his ace in the hole. I'll give everything else up, but that's what's ultimately gonna save me from the death penalty.
He was somebody who was interested in his own self-preservation, not concerned about anyone else. And that's why he chose to cooperate, in my view. I think for Heatley, he did not want to be the person that said he was responsible. And that's how I think he lived with himself, by not having pulled the trigger, that he was somehow absolved because he didn't put his hands on somebody.
I understand that if your hand touched the gun, if you gave the nod, if you agreed, or if you were just there, then you gave the devil his due. But for the life of me, I don't understand what makes one murderer better than the other. Justice without truth.
He showed zero remorse at sentencing and basically said to the court, "I stand before you an innocent man."
I read in the papers the government labeled me the Black Hand of Death. They're good at these labels. Be that as it may, and with all due respect, Your Honor, I will leave and surrender the last words to the white hands of justice. God forgive us all.
Oh, don't bring race.
He was sentenced to life, plus 225 years.
God damn. This nigga got to serve after he died. Yeah, that's crazy. That was tragic, to say the least. They really didn't get into depth of who he unalived or who he got rid of. Let's see. See, what I say in the beginning of the video, that shit looked like something out of Outlast. Or like some horror movie. In the 90s, he was definitely a serious problem. That's the best voice since Robert. I think the shit, yeah, see what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. It just reminds me of First 48. Never understood why gangsters who knew they were being watched flaunt their crimes like they won't be caught. I think the whole point is to be caught. Because at the end of all this shit, I feel like a lot of these people that go to this extreme, their goal isn't to make it out of this shit not dead or in prison. You know what I'm saying? I highly doubt that they think while they're doing all this, they're just going to get away with it scot-free. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of these people want a name. You get that name by either dying or going to prison. Or, dying or going to prison. Shit, if you was a free man walking and you was doing all this, wouldn't nobody know your name? Wouldn't be nothing tied to you? Wouldn't be any type of evidence for real that you're even doing anything. So if you want to build an empire this big, your ass want a name. That's just my opinion though. Because if you was on some low key shit, you wouldn't even went that far. But anyway, that was an interesting video. I'm hoping y'all enjoyed the reaction. Try not to pause it much. But yeah, I'm out this bitch. I'll catch y'all on the next one.